Hello there, all my Diablo 4 gamers. Welcome back to a build guide. This time we're going to be taking a look at Ice Shards, which is the transitory build that I went for after my Arc-Lash videos. And Arc-Lash is a good starter, but I think Ice Shards is probably going to end up being better in the long term. Arc-Lash is much tankier, but I think its damage potential is much lower, and Ice Shards is a bit more vulnerable. But it does significantly more damage, as you'll be seeing in the video, and I'm just going to kind of go over the build and how to fix mana issues and whatnot. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, stick around and consider leaving a like and maybe subscribing if you want to see daily gaming content. Focus primarily on ARPG stuff right now, mostly Lost Ark and D4. Alright, enough blabbering, let's get into the video. So, as always, let's start off with the skill build. It's going to be no real surprise. There's basically one set, like, core skeleton build you can run with Ice Shards, and then from there you can make minor adjustments. Anyways, without further ado, let's run through this. As always with this, I'm not going to say the first node because you have to take the first node if you're getting the second node, so I'm just going to say the name of the second node that we're taking. Moving on, Firebolt, and then we take Enhanced Firebolt just to get down to the next tier. Then we max out Ice Shards. We take Destructive Ice Shards. You can take either or, it's kind of a preference thing. Destructive Ice Shards is, I think, generally going to be better. At least I feel that way. Obviously, go ahead and play with it and swap between them as you see fit. Again, personal preference. Either works. There is no right or wrong choice. Put 1 point into Devastation in order to unlock Elemental Dominance. Then we max Elemental Dominance out. A lot of our gear is going to have things that make us do more damage when we cast a spell above certain mana thresholds, so scaling it is good. More damage is always good. Over here at the defensive wheel, you're going to see some familiar faces. We put a point into Flame Shield, and then we take Shimmering Flame Shield. Again, at this point, if you've played Sorcerer, you probably know what the deal is with Flame Shield. Flame Shield gives us immunity, and it's pretty important, because if you don't have immunity, you're probably just going to get frozen and instagibbed. Teleport with Shimmering Teleport gives us DR, and it gives us a way to move quickly. Glass Cannon. Again, Glass Cannon is a lot of extra damage. There's no reason not to take it. Put a point into Ice Armor for that juicy barrier. It gives us, obviously, a shield. Crazy. It also does give us some mana regen. I have a point into Enhanced Ice Armor. I have played with taking it off. I'm not sure if I necessarily like it or not, but I don't really have anywhere else I want to put this point, so I leave it in Enhanced Ice Armor. You can take this point out and put it elsewhere, though, and I will explain in a minute what I mean. Max out Frost Nova. Again, lower the cooldown of Frost Nova. You want Frost Nova to be as low cooldown as possible, because this build, especially this build, is built around Frost Nova, but every Sorcerer build is like built around Frost Nova, so it's not a surprise. We take Mystical Frost Nova, make it vulnerable. I put a point into Elemental Attunement, again, just because we have lucky hit chance and we're stacking it a little bit. Free cooldown reset on a defensive skill is never bad. We go down here. We take 1 point into Align the Elements, and then we put 3 into Protection and 3 into Mana Shield. Again, it's just more DR and more protectiveness, which is always a good thing. Down here, we put 1 point into Inner Flame and then max out Devouring Blaze, because Devouring Blaze is overpowered. We go down here, we max out every single Ice node here. We're going to put 3 in Permafrost, 3 in Icy Touch, 3 in Frigid Breeze, 3 in Hoarfrost. And then for the ultimate skill, you have some choices. I've been trying out Inferno with Prime Inferno. You don't need the last one because this does nothing for our build. I just take Prime Inferno, and then that node is exactly why I take it. It pulls enemies to the center. It just helps group things. I'm not sure how much I like it. The alternative is taking Deep Freeze. Take the point out of Prime Inferno and Inferno, put it in Deep Freeze, Prime Deep Freeze, and then take the point out of Enhanced Ice Armor and put it into Supreme Deep Freeze. And then Deep Freeze essentially becomes a reset my Frost Nova and Barriers button. It doesn't really do a lot of damage, but you're using it basically to reset the cooldown of your skills, mostly Frost Noving your barriers. I think starting out, this is definitely better. I still think I might like this setup better than Inferno, but I'm still running Inferno right now. Again, like I said, I test things out and I figure out how I like them as I play with it. And then for the Keystone, we take Avalanche. Avalanche fixes your mana problems pretty much entirely if you have even a little bit of resource generation / cost reduction on other pieces of gear. Shatter is the other Keystone we can take, which is the big damage Keystone. I've read from other sources and other people speaking about the subject. Apparently, Shatter is something we can run later on with more optimized gear. I tried to run Shatter just to see how it would be for me, but without Avalanche, I run into mana issues, and I hate not having mana, as I'm sure you may or may not know at this point. So I take Avalanche still. I'll see the day where I can run Shatter, but until then, Avalanche all the way. For the Paragon board, I always don't like to spend too much time here, because Paragon, I feel like there's so many different options that are, like, fine to do, and I don't really know what I'm doing. I just kind of take information that I'm finding from the Discord and other online sources and streams and just seeing what other people are doing. I try to figure out why people do it, and then I try to incorporate that into my own builds. So this is what I have right now. We just go up the right side, take all the intelligence nodes and the dex nodes because of elementalist glyph we socket in here. When we put a get 40 intelligence around us, it gives more damage, stacking once per element, pretty good. And then we take this for the intelligence because we need it, be inside the glyph. Then obviously we take the magic nodes here for non-physical damage. It's just good damage nodes. We go up here. I have elemental summoner board. We go up the left side kind of like this over to these nodes here for the attack speed. Then we go up to the left again, take the maximum mana nodes, and then this maximum mana and life node. The max mana nodes actually do help quite a bit. Reason being is we want mana above 100 because we have a bunch of different things that give us damage bonuses when we cast spells above 100. So we need our pool to be at least a bit above 100 so we don't just cast it and immediately go underneath. We have a chance to regen from either lucky hit resource generation or say like barrier regen, avalanche procs, stuff like that. So we want to stay above 100 mana, or at least one cast is what I'm trying to do. So these nodes are quite good for that, especially if you don't have mana on your gear. Then we go up here, take the dex nodes, go up here for the glyph slot. We put in exploit, and then we take as many dex nodes as we can because these dex nodes then turn into very good damage nodes for vulnerable damage, which is what this build scales off of, is vulnerable damage. We go over here to the left for intelligence nodes, but mostly for the dex nodes. 7 dex nodes, very juicy. We don't need the conjuration skill damage, obviously, but we have to take it in order to get to the juicy nodes. Then I pathed up here, took the dex nodes, pathed up to the next board, which is going to be the Frigid Fate board. This board, from what I can what I understand and what I've seen, is this is the board that you're pretty much always going to put your tactician glyph in. Because, I mean, just look at it, right? This is just like the tactician glyph board. And it seems like pretty much every person seems to have this board in their build, and I can kind of understand why. I'm not sure if I should have taken it as a second board or not, but it doesn't really matter ultimately, because, I mean, this is my paragon, so second or third board doesn't really matter to me. But you might want to switch it up. I'm not sure. Probably not, because exploit is a very good glyph. And you are... Well, I'm running elementalist first rather than exploit. I don't know. Like I said, you definitely have room to play around with your paragon board. This is just to give you an idea. If you just want to copy what I'm doing, then this is what I'm doing. Enough talking. We go up here to the right. I went immediately to the right without taking the glyph node at first. because I wanted all this vulnerable damage and damage reduction from vulnerable enemies. Gives us a bunch of damage and survivability, which is something that I feel like I'm lacking. With Ice Shards, it seems like you are very prone to getting just insta-gibbed if you don't have certain things up, or if you just like take a second to like take a sip of water or that gamer juice. You just stand still for a second, you'll get insta-gibbed. It's very obnoxious and I hate it. So I like to prioritize some DR nodes first. Go up to the glyph socket, put Tactician in. You know the drill here. Take the nodes, the dex nodes, all the rare nodes. You get the vulnerable damage. We scoop that up. Don't take the willpower because we don't need. And then we go to the left. I was trying to figure out which way this was. But we go to the left, path down, and we take these, again, damage reduction from vulnerable enemies. And then this is as far as my paragon goes currently. I think I'm about 75. I think my plan is probably to path up and add another board. I'm not sure what board I want to add. It's probably going to be Burning Instinct, but perhaps. I'll have to look at it some more when I get there. But that's what my Paragon board looks like as of right now. So for the gear, this is sort of just, again, a loose outline of the things that I'm using. The most important aspects, I would say, are going to be this one right here, Aspect of Piercing Cold, which makes your Ice Shards pierce. Gives us some AoE, and, I mean, it's much needed. The other one, I would say, is going to be Aspect of Frozen Memories, which lets your Avalanche passive apply twice rather than just once. This is going to help smooth out your mana issues, especially very early on if your build is very janky and you're missing a lot of the affix rolls that you need on your gear, such as CDR and resource cost reduction and all that nonsense. All the other stuff is pretty standard. Prodigy's Aspect is another important one, but the good thing about the Aspect of Piercing Cold and Prodigy's Aspect is you can see there, you can get this by completing Witchwater, and you can get this by completing Dead Man's Dredge. So these two are both Codex aspects. This Aspect of Frozen Memory is not, but it's not bad. 2 out of 3. You can make do, at least temporarily. It's not going to be smooth, but it's doable. All the other standard aspects you would expect from a Sorcerer build is here. You got your Conceited Aspect, which gives you damage while you have Barrier on. This gives you damage per Immobilization, Stun, Freeze. And then Storm Swell, which is vulnerable when you have a Barrier. For boots, I put on Aspect of Binding Embers. This is kind of like a flex slot. You can just kind of put whatever you want there. I like this because Flame Shield, I can move through shit and it immobilizes them. I don't know. It's fine. It's not a big deal. You can put whatever you want here. And then on the helm, I have lucky hit chances increased when you have a barrier on. For a chest, I'm using Ryman of the Infinite. I think this is just like the best sorcerer chest for like every build. It lets you use teleport as a grouping mechanic, and it also gives you ranks to Glass Cannon on top of being a very good damage chest. So I think this is just best no matter what. I am also running the Frost Nova pants. I'm not sure if these are actually that great or not, but I enjoy them, and for now they seem to be working, so I'm going to keep using these, and I just have them here. Obviously, if you don't want to use these, you can just opt for a defensive aspect like the armor one when you do damage or something like that. For gems, we have the Emerald. As always, we are a vulnerable scaling build, so we take the vulnerable scaling gem. Rubies for life. Life is better since it scales off barriers, or barriers scale off max life rather, which is something good to know, and I got some nice tips on the very first build video I made, which was helpful. Skull, because armor scales better than resistances, which is still weird to me, but yeah, I mean, it makes sense knowing how it works, but just from like a Diablo 3 perspective, it's very weird. Armor is better than resistance. For our skill bar, it's going to look something like this. You want Ice Shards and then Inferno if you run Inferno, otherwise Deep Freeze. Teleport, Frost Nova, Ice Armor, Flame Shield, all your standard stuff. For enchantments, you run Firebolt, of course, and then Ice Shards, because basically you Frost Nova, and then everything you Frost Nova immediately gets hit by free Ice Shards. It does a lot of damage without you even having to cast an ability besides Frost Nova. Very good, as far as enchantments go. Another thing I wanted to make a note of here in the note feature is, for stat priority, normally it's not too much of a big deal. It's just like get the damage rolls that affect your build. It's pretty self-explanatory. But for this build, even more so than the other builds, you want to absolutely prioritize CDR. You need as much cooldown reduction as you possibly can. You need to get Frost Nova to as low of a cooldown as you possibly can. So you want to get like boots to have +3 Frost Nova or something ideally. You want CDR in pretty much every piece that can roll it, etc, etc. Frost Nova is the sort of machine to this build. Much like the LASH build, but yeah, you get the idea. Sorcerer is built around Frost Nova right now, and it is what it is. And then as far as everything else goes, you definitely want resource cost reduction. Resource cost over resource generation, but ideally you want both on some pieces of gear. So we're going to talk about how to fix your mana problems with Ice Shards. That's one of the biggest things that kept me from switching to Ice Shards, was I don't want to run out of my resource because I don't find it fun running around not being able to cast spells. And that's why LASH is such a good starter into the endgame build, in my opinion, and that's why I swapped into Ice Shards when I sort of figured out what I was doing and how to fix the mana problems. Anyways, that's enough yapping from me. I always open the store because I press P to open my character panel, and it's not P in this game. You'll notice, if you look at my gear, a lot of my gear has resource generation, mana cost reduction, and primary resource, lucky hit chance, like percent chance to restore primary resource. These are all affixes that are very important for Ice Shards, especially to basically always have mana, even on single target. But one of the main things, aside from getting resource generation, mana cost reduction, and lucky hit primary restore chance on gear that can get it, is this key node right here, Avalanche. And it reads as follows: lucky hit, your frost skills have a 10% chance to make your next cast of Ice Shards, Frozen Orb, or Blizzard consume no mana and deal more damage. And then the chance of the proc happening is doubled against vulnerable enemies. Now, this pairs very well with our other nodes on how to restore mana, such as Frigid Breeze. Hold damage against vulnerable enemies has 20% chance to generate mana. So making Ice Shards free for one cast really starts to stack up all of our other multipliers and ways to restore our mana. That being said, there's also an aspect which I do not have. If I did have it, my mana would be even better than it already is. I mean, my mana is pretty much 100% full all the time. But there's an aspect that increases the amount of procs you get from Avalanche from 1 to 2. So every time Avalanche procs, you'll get 2 free casts, and that just makes your mana even smoother. So basically, I'm able to do it fine because I have basically mana cost reduction and cooldown reduction on every other piece of gear that can have it, except I think I have it on one of my rings is missing it, but I pretty much have it in every slot that can have it. So while I don't have the Avalanche aspect, I think for the majority of people, grabbing the Avalanche aspect is going to smooth out your Ice Shards gameplay significantly, and that's generally how you're probably going to fix your mana problems. Grab the Avalanche Keystone and use the aspect that gives you an additional charge of Avalanche when you proc it. Alright, and I think that's going to do it for this Ice Shard build guide. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you guys learned some things. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Either way, thank you so much for watching. As always, thank you to my YouTube members. Consider becoming a YouTube member if you want to help support the content creation that I make every single day. Trying to do this for the long haul helps a lot. Thanking my tier 2s, Blitzel, Remix My Life, Arizite, Peachy. Thanking my tier 1s, It's Biscuits, Inder, Diz, Clouded, Dangerous, and Joxini. You get a shout out in every YouTube video I make, and you get a cool Discord role. Alright, I think that's about it from me. The rest of the Nightmare Dungeon's going to play in the background, and yeah, like the video if you like it, dislike it if you dislike it, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you all in the next one. Adios.